Today I did my first Twitch video and I didn't know I had to go into my settings and save to save future videos. So that's been handled. And so I guess technically this looks like my first Twitch video. So welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome to Heart Mind Conversations with Cheryl Piper. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Cheryl Piper. And men and women struggling with relationship challenges hire me to help uncover sabotaging patterns that are really blocking their success. So, whether that relationship is with you in business, you in your personal life, or with you and yourself, that's what I do. I'm the relationship coach. So, we are going to start off our show today talking about spotting energy vampires. And that's, I just thought, well, this will be kind of cool because, next week is Halloween. And I did a show on this on my Facebook live show a few weeks ago because we've kind of been in a pattern of talking about working on self-care and self-love. And so, in working in this space of self-care and self-love, we have to be able to see patterns that are happening with people who show up in our life. And so, you know what? I'm going to bring my screen up and just show this while I'm talking a little bit. So, stepping into self-care and self-love for yourself. Stepping into self-love, stepping into self-compassion, stepping into self-kindness. All of these things are so important because some of the worst conversations that we are ever in are the conversations that go on in our own head. And so that's one thing we're going to talk about today because, I can think back throughout my life and just the times that, say, something really good has happened and everything seems to be flowing, and the next thing that I'm excited about is coming down the way, and everything seems to be lined up for that to happen and take place. And then guess what happens? And I'm sure you guys have all been there. This little voice just starts coming up and talking to us and saying, I don't know, is that really what you want to do? Or maybe it might not be that kind. It might be, you know what, that's really not for you. And you're not really smart enough to do that. Who are you trying to fool? So this voice and these conversations that we have in our own mind, oh my goodness. Seriously, if somebody were to come up to you and start talking to you the way sometimes we talk to ourselves, well, we wouldn't tolerate that. We would just look at them, first of all, look at them like they're a little bit crazy. Like, why are you coming up to me talking this way? And second of all, we would just kind of put those boundaries up and say, you know what, I don't really want to talk to you. And, move on with your day and move away from this person. And so in learning self-love and self-care and self-compassion and self-kindness, all of these things about being kind to ourselves is so important, because when we remove that destructive chatter, there's no other word I can think of for it. When we remove that destructive chatter from our mind, we can really open ourselves up for all the wonderful possibilities that are out there. And so thinking about this and moving forward, you know what, I probably should have put a slide up. I'll bring that in next time because we're probably going to talk a little more about neuroscience. But one of the things that we need to remember is the brain really moves in the direction of what we tell it the most. That's what it believes. So if we are telling ourselves negative things, if we are repeating over and over again, how that's never going to happen. And, I don't know what I'm thinking about doing. Why should I think about doing that? I'm not good enough for that. I don't have enough experience for that. People are going to see I don't have enough experience for that. All of those negative things. If that's the self-talk we have, and that's what we are telling the brain, well, then that's what it's going to believe, and we'll move forward in that direction. But if we remove that negative self-talk and we start talking in the way of possibility and start speaking to ourselves with self-love and self-compassion and self-kindness, and saying, you know what, I can do that. And, I'm going to put things in place to make sure that I have enough experience in that area, blank area, whatever it is, so that I'm going to move forward with that project because that's what I really want to do, and stay focused in that area. And where we put our attention, that's where we're putting our focus. So I think there's a slide that I have that says attention flows where attention or intention goes. And so put your intention on your attention. And so make sure that what we're thinking about, putting that intention forward, is what we really want and what we want moving forward. And so that's what I wanted to talk about, was self-care and self-love. And now back to the, hold on one second. There we go. Back to learning to spot energy vampires. Now this really does have to do with the concept of stepping into self-love and self-care for ourselves. Because as you can see from the image that I put on the screen, I mean, what's going on here? You've got one person, this girl surrounded in red, and you can see, her arms are crossed, and, her face is not smiling or happy. Even though it's just a silhouette, you can feel and tell what's going on here. And she is probably, doing a lot of speaking about woundology, talking about all her woes that have happened to her in her life, and just really feeding on that negative energy. And so when people are energy vampires, their vibrational level is pretty low. They're down in anger, they're down in fear, they're down in despair, they're in all of those lower level energies. And when they're there and they come across someone who is a sensitive, or someone who likes to help, or someone who is kind in that way and doesn't have their boundaries set, what they do is they just kind of dump all over them. And then that person, you can just see what happens. Their energy is being drained, and they're allowing their energy to be drained. So let's make that perfectly clear. This person on the other side that's holding her head and thinking, oh my goodness, is this conversation ever going to be over? This person is allowing their energy to be taken from them. So we need to make that super clear. And that is why that I talk about creating those boundaries, because in creating those boundaries, there's going to be a block between these two people. And when this situation happens, that person is not going to allow their energy to be pulled. Or if they feel their energy going, because this person is just working on them and wearing on them, then they step up to what needs to be said in an assertive way, and simply state that this conversation can't move forward the way it is. I know I've been in those situations where I've had to say, you know what, I'm not helping you in this moment. I understand that you want to be upset, and I have tried to, point out the really positive things that are going on here. You simply aren't interested in that, and that's okay, because that's where you want to be. But this conversation needs to be finished, because I am not feeling positive anymore about it. I'm not feeling like that we're communicating on the same level. I'm not feeling that this conversation is a how do I want to say that? Probably a flow going back and forth. Because let's go back over here to the slide. When we look at what I have written at the top here, we have positive people, we have neutral people, and then we have energy vampires. And so that's why I have learned to spot energy vampires. Because when we have an encounter with a positive person, you know who this is. This is somebody who sees the world in a beautiful way, who sends their love out to the world. And when you are talking with this person, there's just this flow, the flow of energy going back and forth. You guys are talking about something and you can feel your imagination is flowing. You can feel that you're co-creating with them and with different ideas are flowing through the conversation that you're having. It's wonderful. And so when you meet these type of people that are positive, and then you walk away from that conversation, how do you feel? You feel really good. You feel kind of really light, and you feel like you're stepping a little lighter because you've just had an encounter where you were sharing the flow of energy. And when you share your energy with someone and they're sharing their energy with you in a positive way with this high vibrational frequency, then you actually amplify that energy out. So it's not just the two of you and your sharing of energy. That share and exchange of energy actually amplifies. And so it can surround like the whole room. You just feel better. And then there are people that you meet that are neutral people. You meet them, you have a conversation, might be a pleasant conversation, but you don't feel any different when you walk away. You don't feel good, you don't feel bad. It was simply a conversation and it was very neutral. And then you have energy vampires. And most of the time you can see these people coming and you know who they are. If you don't recognize this, you will understand how you feel when they walk away from you. Because when they walk away, and what they've done is they just come to feed. That's why they're called energy vampires, because they come to people who really like to help. And they don't have boundaries set for themselves. They're not grounded and they don't have boundaries set. And so what the energy vampire does is comes into the sensitive person, comes into the empath, light worker, healer, whoever that is not grounded and does not have their boundaries in place. And they just take and they take and they take and they feed on that energy, because that empath is a kind person and is looking to help and help people who are feeling bad, not understanding that an energy vampire or someone who's in this state, they're not interested in feeling any better. They're not interested in help. They're not interested in feeling better about the situation. They're interested in complaining about it. They're interested in telling the story over and over and over again. I mean, I've known people who we've been talking about this situation and they'll say, you know what, I met this woman and she was telling me this story and I thought, wow, what an awful situation. And they said, I thought it happened yesterday or maybe last week. And then they found out it happened 10 years ago. 10 years ago. And the reason that it sounds so fresh and like it just happened is because they've been telling the story over and over and over again for 10 years. And they have given it life. And they've put their life force into this story. And they've created a victimhood around it. And I mean, that's just going to be a whole nother show and conversation that we can have. But that's what's happening. And so when someone who really likes to help others, but doesn't have their boundaries set, comes across this type of person, it's almost like what you would almost call like a fatal attraction. because the energy vampire senses it. The sensitive person doesn't really realize what's happening. They just want to help. And the next thing you know, they walk away and they feel completely drained. And once again, they've allowed that energy to be taken from them. They've allowed that energy to flow from their energy source and where it belongs, which is around them and within them. And so this is why they feel so drained afterward, because it wasn't a two-way conversation. It wasn't a two-way exchange of energy. Like when we have that conversation with the positive person, that energy just flows and goes back and forth, and it empowers you and you feel wonderful. It's the complete opposite of that. And so in this type of situation, what the empath or the sensitive or the light worker needs is they need to learn assertiveness, because there is a way to speak what is true for you with kindness and compassion to the other person. You don't have to, so many times people think, oh my goodness, I don't want to just barrel over somebody and be a bulldozer. Well, that's not assertiveness. That's aggressiveness. That is basically barreling over someone, telling them what you think and that you believe that you're right. And no matter what, this is real and this is true. And you don't care what they think. That's aggressive. Or there's passive aggressive, where people tend to maneuver around situations and try to assess the situation and then maneuver around the person. And that's exhausting as well. I mean, that's exhausting to be that way. And you build up a lot of resentment in that state, because that's a situation where somebody is saying, well, yes, I can help you. Yes, I'll do that. And inside they're thinking, my goodness, I always am helping these people and they never see how much work I do. And so that's not healthy either. But when we step into assertiveness, which is speaking the truth of the situation at hand, and in doing it in a way that is kind and compassionate to the other person, then we've created boundaries. And that's what we want, because our energy belongs in our energy space. Everyone else's energy belongs in their energy space. We need this. We need this to operate. We need this to move through the day. And this is how we fill ourselves up to overflowing, so we have plenty to give and share with others. It's when we deplete ourselves and we allow ourselves to be depleted that we feel exhausted, we feel drained. And so it's very important for us to fill our cups first when it comes to self-love and self-care. Filling ourselves up. It's like what do they say on the airplane when they're going through their little spiel when you're getting ready to take off? If the oxygen mask drops, what does it say? Put it on yourself first so you can help someone else. And that's what we're talking about here. When you fill yourself up and take care of yourself, then you have plenty to give to others. It's when we're running around thinking we have to take care of everyone else and depleting, that we feel exhausted. And we feel like no one cares about us. And we feel like people are taking advantage of us. All of these negative thoughts that come into us. Whereas if we practice, I'm going to flip the slide up again. If we practice self-love, self-compassion, and self-kindness, those things just aren't going to take place anymore within our thought system. And this is how we change our thoughts and change our life. Because when we create a new thought pattern and we move in that direction, we change our life. And that's another show. And I can't wait to bring that one to you guys. I am so happy to be here on Twitch. Like I said, this is all new to me. I'm trying to learn the platform. And I am still deciding, when am I going to do my shows over here? Um, I do my shows on Facebook on Monday and Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And, you'll find me there at Cheryl Piper Sends Love. Or you can check it out you can find me on my website at, my goodness, things are just moving around here, CherylPiper.com. I keep it really super simple. And I don't know, I'm thinking about it. Maybe you guys give me some ideas what you're thinking. I'm really here just to bring this love and kindness to the world. That's my job. That's what I do. I am the relationship coach. Again, I'm Cheryl Piper, Heart Mind Conversations with Cheryl Piper, and I look forward to seeing you again. I probably am going to pop on here again before the weekend's out, because I really want to learn more about this platform, and then I'll schedule my shows for next week. Take care. Have a great Friday.